All right. A gute Woche. It's a beautiful Shabbos. It's a big covet to have two of the world's heroes of Kiruv here. I'm looking at two. It's Project Inspire. With all Shirim, we don't get to hear too much about. What inspired us. So when I first started out in Kiruv, there were two people who I went to a Shabbaton, and everywhere I went, when I was like wannabe Kiruv guy, I would see Rabbi Yaakov Solomon in front of the room. It's an unbelievable thing to see him here in the audience. He's single-handedly brought Kiruv to America, and if anyone heard of anyone going to a seminar for 15 straight years, it was him and Rabbi Milstein. They did Kiruv. They were the guys. And no Kiruv seminar had any credibility whatsoever. And no Kiruv seminar would have any credibility whatsoever if it was just rabbis and therapists. You always had to have someone who gave the whole thing credibility. And I would go to every seminar. They would always have a world-class scientist who would get up and speak so everybody would know that everything was legit. And we have this chus of having Dr. Goldfinger here, who every gateway seminar he would get up to speak, and every rabbi then was allowed to say whatever they wanted because Rabbi Goldfinger said it was real. And it wasn't his speech, it was the credibility he lent to all the other speakers. Right? He was the head of space technology training for the Republic of China. I remember that. I tell everybody that. I met the space socialist. Okay, so it's just to be in the same room. Let me get started here. I spend a good portion of my life on college campuses. I really travel around and I talk to students. And I'm not on any one campus. Most campuses have a full-time makar. If he's there, that's his job, his students. And then they bring in guest speakers to speak because colleges are very, very left-wing. And you can get thrown off a campus very easily. So the rabbis on campus, they can't risk talking about certain topics because they'll be thrown out. I've been thrown out of a few campuses myself. But what happens is, but there are things that need to be spoken about. So they bring in outside people to do those talks. If the kids get upset, then they'll go, we'll never bring him back again. So that was my job. So I go around talking about, one of my biggest topics is politics, because everyone's leftists and liberalism and all these things. So I put together a class. The first time I did it was for Yale University. I went to Yale, I tried it out there, and I was surprised how well it went. It was a very raw class. Since then I've given the talk literally hundreds of times. It's changed. And so I'm going to share with you this talk. Today, every year the talk gets more nogea. It's like how polarized the world is today. It's incomprehensible. You can't have an honest conversation. There's not an honest news station. Everything's either right or left. You watch news for 1 minute, you know exactly who's talking, what their agenda is. And the real question is, okay, what is the Torah's perspective? Does the Torah have a position on politics? Does the Torah have a view on how the world is supposed to be run, what the ideologies are? So this is the shir. The shir is divided into 3 parts. The first part is a simple thing. It's light, it's simple, it's cute. The second part starts to get heavy, and the third part is the most important part. It's heavy. It's not so deep, but it's very, very important, and it's controversial. And one part is practical, philosophical, and psychological. We'll see. Let's go through it quickly. I'm going to start off as follows. Is heaven a red state or a blue state? So the model of things in Judaism is we have a concept in Yiddishkeit of a different way of understanding the number 3. Most people conceive of the number 3 as 1, 2, 3. It's linear. If you ever get involved in mystical things in Kabbalah or even Machshava, our picture of the number 3 in Yiddishkeit is a triangle. Is 1, 2, 3. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. Pesach, Sukkot, Shavuos. It's always a triangle. What's the difference between a triangle and a linear thing? A linear thing means that as we progress, things change and grow and we move forward. A triangle is a little deeper. A triangle says the way you progress is you first have one trait, Then you need to move on to the opposite trait, and then totality, perfection, is to synthesize those two opposites. Thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Davar v'hifuchai, and then you need to balance it, in the balance. That's how things are in Yiddishkeit. Klal Yisrael begins with three avos: Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Avraham really, I never know how from groups are going to take this, because you have to be careful how you talk, but whatever, I'm not going to spend time building up and defending it. If you don't like it, just give me a pass. We have a lot to do. Avram was your first liberal. Avram's life is homeless shelters, soup kitchens. Avram is davening for every Russia in the world. Save Melech Sodom, you have to understand him, and save the tzaddikim there, and Avimelech, and Parai. There's almost not a page in the Torah where Avram isn't davening for a Russia. He's taking care of the poor, he's feeding people, he's housing them. Avram is literally, if you read the small amounts of information we have on him in the Torah, it sounds like he's a bleeding heart liberal. Avram's son Yitzchak is exactly the opposite. He's called Din as Yitzchak. He's the most scary, Pachad Yitzchak, the dread, the awe of Yitzchak. Yitzchak is Din. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, no free rides, earn your keep, wake up early, work hard, be disciplined, put one foot in front of another, no handouts. And the Chazal Taka hinted this in many ways. They say to all the people that Avram was Makarev, Yitzchak scared off. Yitzchak was your first conservative. Now what happens is that neither Avram or Yitzchak were allowed to have the 12 Shvatim. Klal Yisrael had to be built on this triangle. Avraham, Chesed, Yitzchak, Din, and then Yaakov is the Tiferes. Yaakov is called the Shlish, the Bechir HaOves. Yaakov is the balance. Because what happens to Avram? When you have liberalism, without any conservatism, without any rules, what is the result of love and tolerance and everything's good? When everything is good and everything's wonderful, what's the result of that? What happens when you raise children that everything's wonderful, it's all good? What do you call the trait? What's that child going to be? What's the word you would use? Pere Adam, wild man. Who's the Pere Adam? Avram as a child, Yishmael, who's a Pere Adam, a wild man. No rules, no restrictions, too much chesed. Just pure chesed. Yitzchak also has a child who doesn't do so well. If you raise your child with so much discipline and so many rules, and so you have to earn everything, and there's no shortcuts, and he's got to finish his mishnayos and finishes this, and make bench, no matter how tired you are, and wake up and do his doyim, and every single thing. There's no room to be a kid. So you end up with a tzaddik, but you also end up with Esav. Esav is the product of too much din, and Yishmael is the product of too much chesed. There are two different types of evil, because the world is chesed and din. Din without gevulim and chesed without gevulim are dangerous. If you have only chesed and tolerance, you end up with Pere Adam and the sins of Yishmael. Yishmael is a noyef, and Esav is a roitzeach. If you have too much chesed, you become an adulterer. Too much love is adultery, and too much discipline is a murderer. Yishmael and Esav represent the two extremes of evil. There is chesed evil and din evil. Each one of them gave birth to religions. And then Yaakov is the synthesis. He's the balance of chesed and din. All 12 of his children are wonderful. They're all tzaddikim, shiftei ka. So you end up with Yaakov's children who create Yiddishkeit, Islam, and Christianity. We see Islam as the corruption of chesed, and Christianity as the corruption of din. There are noyafim and roitzchim, right? And these are the sins. Klal Yisrael is the balance. In every way, Klal Yisrael is really the Tiferes of Yishmael and Esav. In fact, Al Pi Kabbalah, a very deep thing, we just had Nasev and Nishma. If everyone knows the famous Chazal, that Hoifia Mehar Vizorach, the Pasuk describes Hashem arriving at Har Sinai. Vizorach Mehar and Hashem shone forth to Har Sinai from Seir. He arrived from Mount Paran. It's describing Hashem's itinerary on the way to Har Sinai. He stopped off in Har Seir and Har Paran. That's the Har Seir is where Esav lives, Har Paran is where Yishmael lives. And he stopped off, he came there. And that's how Klal Yisrael is makabel the Torah with Nasev and Nishma. What's Nasev and Nishma? Nasev and Nishma is Esav and Yishmael. It's the meat. Esav is Nasa, is Asiya, and Yishmael is Shmiya, is Shmiya. The midos of Esav and Yishmael together are shleimus. There's a shleimus when you combine the right and the left. The problems of Yishmael and Esav are that they're separated. Yaakov is a synthesis of Nasav and Ishmael. It's the ability to synthesize the hearing and the doing. Okay, that's not the goal of this class to give a talk like this, but this is just the way I start to set it up. So the first thing I want to say is Torah a red state or a blue state? The Torah is purple. It's the synthesis of Chesed and Din. Chesed and Din are all true. The Torah is liberal and the Torah is conservative. The idea is that you have to balance them. I used to drive many hours every day to different campuses. I would drive 4 hours each way to Penn State, 4 hours each way to Albany. Every day was a different 4-hour campus. More than 4 hours I would fly, but there are plenty of schools within 4 hours I could drive. So what I would do is I would drive the whole way one way. I would listen to 770, Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity and all those guys. Other way back, I would listen the whole way to NPR. And it was unbelievable. My head would be spinning at the end. You get two whole different views of the world. If you listen to the right-wing talk radio, they make it sound like any left-winger is a communist. If you listen to left-wing talk radio, every right-winger is a Nazi. It's a world of Nazis and communists. The world is so polarized, it's unbelievable. Now, if you listen to either side, I don't know why it's not obvious to everybody. Let me show you what I do with students. I go through the room and I'll say to them, can you give me a list of right-wing agendas? And then you give me a list of left-wing agendas. Let's do the left-wing first. What is a list of left-wing agendas? Give me a little catchword, slogans. I'll help you. Let's do it fast, because we're on a schedule. What?
Alternative lifestyle. Tax the rich.
Not what? Acceptance of alternative lifestyle. Acceptance, tolerance, no bias, love, compassion, togetherness, oneness, freedom, right? Taking care of people, caring, nurturing, handout, help, assistance, programs.
Opposition to the right.
Okay. We'll see. Now the right. What's the right-wing agendas? Family, values, discipline, hard work, ethics, duty, responsibility. Freedom from tyranny, right? Freedom. But freedom to accomplish, dream, to accomplish, to conquer, to develop, to build, to create, duty, responsibility, ethics. Bottom line is you present anyone both of these lists. I don't think it's possible to take issue with anything on any of these lists. Everybody would agree that both of these lists are valid. There's nothing wrong with love and tolerance and acceptance. There's nothing wrong with ethics and value and duty and responsibility and hard work. It's shocking that there isn't an organized effort to synthesize both positions. The world is so extremely polarized. Our message to the world as Yidden is the message of the Bnei Yaakov, is Shiftei Ka, is that there has to be a balance. This is the soft, easy part of the speech. I'm going to just spend a few minutes, because I don't normally do this, but with a frum crowd, you have more makairos. I can share with you 3 different things. I want to show you, though, even though at this point in the talk, I want to portray for you that Yiddishkeit believes in a balance. It's Avram, Yitzchak. Avram's the chesed, Avram's the liberal, Yitzchak's the conservative. There are a few distinct biases in the Torah. I'll go through them quickly, because we do have a lot to do. Bias number 1 is that Avraham comes before Yitzchak. That's a very important rule. Even though Avram and Yitzchak are each 50%, and Yaakov is the balance of those two, Avram has to come before Yitzchak, meaning that in anything in life, you first have to establish the chesed side. If you're raising your children need love and discipline, but you have to show them Avram first. You have to first establish with your children that you love them. Only once they're convinced that you love them, then you can start to bring in Yitzchak. You have to go through the ishtalshlus as the Torah gives to you. First, let your children experience the Avram stage of life, and then the Yitzchak stage of life. You can't reverse it. Yitzchak doesn't come before Avram. That's bias number 1. Again, they're 50-50, but there are 3 biases. Bias number 1 is, in order, Avram comes before Yitzchak. Bias number 2. This is a very deep thing, an interesting thing. People tend to want to get distracted here. If it's not clear after 30 seconds, we're going to drop it, because it's not that important. But Avraham marries a wife after Sarah dies. He marries a woman called Keturah. And it's very strange, because Hashem already promised Avram, Ki b'Yitzchak yikol chazara. Yitzchak is going to be your legacy. So why did he have to have more kids if Yitzchak's going to be his legacy? He's done. And he goes out. It's not like he has one kid. He has many more kids. And if you look at the names of the kids, there's a preponderance of one name, a similar name. There's Midon, Didon, Bidon. A lot of the kids have the name Din in the name. And the explanation of why Avram marries this woman, has kids, he doesn't even keep them around. He sends them off to the lands of the east with gifts. That's what it says, right? Avram sends them off to the land of the east. These children, Midon, Didon, Midyon. So the way we understand this, it's a very, very heavy thing, and it's a really beautiful thing. And it's such a tangent, I wouldn't bring it up if it wasn't so beautiful. If you hear it, this is one of the most beautiful things about Yiddishkeit. The goal of Yiddishkeit is to create a balance of chesed and din. The best way to create a balance is a full dose of chesed, a full dose of din, pour them in the pot, it'll be 50-50. The problem is, everyone in life wants balance. And we're usually not successful. We get close, but we always miss to different directions. If your goal is balance and you're going to not be perfect, that means sometimes you're going to miss a little bit, be imbalanced to this side, and sometimes you'll be a little imbalanced to this side. You'll be too much chesed, sometimes you'll be too soft, sometimes you'll be too strong. Avraham was terrified at the prospect of Klal Yisrael making the mistake sometimes to the tzad hadin, to being too strong. So what he did is he took a huge risk. And instead of having Yitzchak as his descendant, having Yitzchak, him chesed and Yitzchak din, he married and had more children to share the din. He gave away, part of the din was given off to the Bnei Keturah. Midyon, Bidon, Didon. So now Yitzchak is not a full dose of din. Now he's creating a big problem, because now it's going to be really hard to create balance. How do you create balance when you have the 100% of chesed and only 80% of din? It's much harder to create a perfect balance. It's always going to be off. But why would Avram do that? Because what Avram assured Klal Yisrael, by jeopardizing their chance at success, what he did do is he assured that if Klal Yisrael will ever make a mistake, it's more likely you'll make mistakes now. You'll be off balance. But you're always going to be off to the chesed side. When Klal Yisrael messes up, we're always going to mess up to the tzad chesed. And Avram thought it was worth jeopardizing shleimus for a safe landing on mistakes. When Klal Yisrael will err, we will err to the side of chesed. It's always, I should have told him, I would have told him, I didn't do, but we don't. There's only one time in history that Klal Yisrael sat down in judgment and they ended up with a psak that was too harsh, all the din. Do you know which case that was? When did Klal Yisrael sit down as everybody there and end up saying something that was cold, maybe right, but so cold? Mechiras Yosef. How did that happen? Who was Mechiras Yosef to? Midyan. When Midyan was back in the room, all of the din was intact. And at that moment, it was possible to rule al pi din. And they left with Yosef because of the moment of the unification of din. Shimon and Levi brought back that din to Klal Yisrael, and that's why it goes on. That's why they have to figure out how to fix what they did. And they each have to properly bring in the din of Midyan. The leader of Shimon and Levi both have to marry the leaders of Midyan and be megayer them properly and bring back them properly. Moshe marries Tzipora, the Bas Melech Midyan, and Zimri, the leader of Shimon, tries to take the Bas Melech Midyan. He doesn't do it properly, so Reuven ends up being fixed, and Shimon doesn't end up being fixed. Sorry, Levi ends up being fixed, and Shimon, that's a whole long schmooze. It's just to whet your appetite. But I'm bringing this in to show you bias number 2. Bias number 1 is, yes, chesed, for those who just came in, chesed and din have to be balanced. Bias number 1 is a chesed comes before din. Bias number 2 is, if you make a mistake and you're not balanced, you always have to make the mistake to the chesed side. Always aim not to make a mistake. It should be balanced. But if you're going to be imbalanced, you have to be off to chesed, not to din. Play it safe to this side. Bias number 3, I'm running out of time, so I'll just say this fast. Bias number 3 is when Moshe is told to speak to the rock, and Moshe hits the rock. There's a few kashas there. HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells Moshe, go call Aaron, take your stick, and speak to the rock. And then Moshe hits the rock, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu punishes Moshe and Aaron. He can't go into Eretz Yisrael. The two main questions everybody asks are, if Hashem wants him to speak to the rock, why did he tell him, take your stick? He's teasing him, he's tricking him, take your stick and speak to the rock. And why is Aaron punished? What did Aaron do wrong? How come Aaron Aaron's punished. Moshe hit the rock. Aaron didn't do anything. But if you look at the pasuk, there's two more questions. He says, call Aaron, take your stick, and speak to the rock. Why should he call Aaron if he's supposed to speak to the rock? So the Torah says, call Aaron, take your stick, speak to the, and vidibartem, the fourth question. What does vidibartem mean? You should speak, plural. Doesn't say vidibarta. So here's the story. Moshe Rabbeinu tells Hashem, I can't talk. And Hashem says, Aaron, fine, Aaron will talk. You carry the stick. The mode of Jewish relation is that Aaron talks and Moshe stands behind him with the stick. We're not being soft and we're not being tough. It's a dual message. Moshe goes to Paroi. Hashem says, Aaron, he will speak. You'll be the din, he'll be the communicator, and you'll be the heavy. And good cop, bad cop. I call it talk softly and carry a big stick. You talk, Aaron talks, and Moshe carries. That's the model of Klal Yisrael. So when Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu to go call Aaron, take your stick, and you, plural, should speak to the rock, what is he saying? The same old model they worked with Paro. He wasn't telling Moshe to speak to the rock. He was saying, call Aaron, take your stick, and the two of you will speak, meaning what? You'll come there with a stick like this, and Aaron will talk to the rock. And then when Moshe ends up hitting the rock, now they're both punished. Because what was supposed to happen, the synthesis was off. Moshe was supposed to speak, and Aaron was supposed to speak, and Moshe was supposed to stand there. Instead, Moshe hit. That means Moshe overwhelmed Aaron. Aaron underwhelmed Moshe. That balance was off. Okay, why was it off? Because you can only have balance when there's the balance. Who was the third sibling there? Was Miriam. Miriam was the one who affected the balance of Moshe and Aaron, and Miriam had just died. That's why there was no water. But worse than not having water was Miriam died. There was no synthesis now between Moshe and Moshe overwhelmed Aaron. Aaron underwhelmed Moshe. Moshe's stick overcame Aaron's speech, and they hit the rock. And that's why they're both punished. So bias number 3, this took long, but bias number 3 is what? Is that the public expression, the public guy is the Aaron guy. Aaron is Shalom and Moshe is Emes. Chesed has to come before Din. You have to make mistakes to Chesed rather than Din. And the face of the Jewish people has to be the Chesed guy. The Din guy could pull the strings. Moshe, no one disputes that Moshe didn't run the show. But the guy who talks to the people, the face of the Jewish people, we always have to have the loving, caring, friendly face. That's part 1 of the talk. Here's part 2. When I want to get credibility with the students, you have to show them that we take politics very, very seriously. And the Torah, I believe the Torah's depth starts where their depth ends off. And I tell them like this, let's discuss what is the political argument of Chesed versus Din, of right versus left, of red state or blue state. It's a little complicated to get everyone to agree on terminology that we'll use, but you have 20 minutes to discuss one part of a share. You have to come up with you have to agree on joint terms. Because really there are Republicans and Democrats, conservatives and liberals, right wing and left wing. They're not all the same. Capitalists and communists, socialists. It's very hard to come up with one word that sort of sums it all up. The closest we have is right and left. And as time goes on, it does become more and more polarized. Of course, there are rhinos and there's all these different, but right and left is the most understandable, the words that we use today. And that people sort of intuitively understand how you fall within the range of right or left. How would you define right or left? If you want to come up with a simple definition that we could start building from. So the simple way to understand the argument of right and left is, and again, it's going to change as we go through levels. In the beginning, a lot of the right-wingers might object to what I say, but I think that it's accurate, and don't jump down my throat. I think you'll like it more as we go along. The way you describe right and left is, it seems like from their agendas, is that the left primarily is concerned about everybody else, the group. And the right is primarily concerned about myself. My rights, my abilities, don't step on my toes, government shouldn't intrude, and the left wants to make sure that my personal rights are not what's paramount, but the group. The individual has to give way to the group. Is government designed to protect the individual, or is it there to protect the group? That's where I would start the argument. I usually can get the start because the students love when I say that. It sounds like the left is so much more moral and noble, and they let me progress. I just need to get started. So I'm going to call level 1. We'll call it right and left. The level 2 of depth, when we start to give meaning to these words, we'll call it focus on self versus focus on others. We'll call that level 2. So now I want to go, what's level 3? Why is it that human beings, we have the same relative, history, DNAs, we're more or less similar. Why do half of human beings believe you should focus on self, and half of you believe that you should focus on others? What is the underlying philosophical argument behind those choices? Why do some people line up here, and some people line up there? I think there's an inherent, Torah really believes there's an inherent philosophical machlokes of what is more spiritual, what is more godly, what is holier. It's not just a random argument. The reason why some people believe, some people are right and some people left, some people say focus on self and others, is a question of what is more kaddish, what is holier, unity or individuality? Unity and individuality are opposites. We throw them around like they're very moral words, but they cannot coexist. What does unity mean? Unity means is that we all give up something of ourselves to fit in with the group. You have a coach who makes sure we all play together. You can't take all the shots. You have to pass, you have to share for the good of the team. You have to know when to step back. That's what unity is. Individuality says, God gave me abilities. I can't waste anything Hashem gave me. Hashem decided I have to be me. The slogan of the individuality people is is to be all that you can be. It's a waste. It's about tashchis. You have to develop your whole personality. And the unity people will say is no, you have to worry about the group. So this is already a very holy argument. What is holier? Unity or individuality? You see, if you believe that unity, achdus, is more holy than individuality, then you're going to believe that the individual has to give away, we have to take care of everybody. If you're going to believe that the individual is the most important thing, then you're going to believe that the group, that you have to take care of yourself, and the group will fall into place. But you can't cripple yourself. If anyone who doesn't develop themselves is vetoing God's position. God gave me these koiches. Who am I to squander them? Okay, so that's called level of depth number 3. Let's go to level of depth number 4. Because that's very arbitrary. Why does half the world believe that the value of life is unity and half unity? Right? It would be interesting. If we had time, I would go through the room. It's interesting to see a show. You want to do a show of hands, quick? Unity. How many people believe that unity is holier than individuality? How many people believe that individuality is holier than unity? Interesting. Cool. Okay. Let's see next. But where does the root of that machlokes come from? What's the underlying machlokes? Why should one person think that Hashem, there's mitzvos of both, right? Both is mitzvahs. Chayecha kaidem. You can bring chazals all day long that line up on both sides of this, because the answer, we know what the punchline is, that it's both. But until we get to the both, I'm working in the background how we got to both. What is the root of the argument of unity and individuality? Can you figure out the underlying argument? What do I have to believe in order to think that unity is the most valuable thing in the world? And what do I have to believe that individuality is the most important thing in the world? And the answer to this is a different essential argument. What is holier? Chesed or din? Justice or kindness? It's another example of spiritual words that everyone lumps together as if it's one thing. Chesed and din. Chesed and din are opposites. They cannot coexist. Let me define that for you. What is the meaning of the word din? What is justice? Can you define justice? You have a sound bite for what justice is? Beautiful. You get exactly what you deserve. Measure exact. What is chesed? Even though you don't deserve it, I'm going to give it to you anyway. So do you understand that all chesed is not din? Chesed is not just, and justice is not chesed. They're opposites. Now, if we had time, we can go through the beauty of both. But there's an unbelievable beauty of justice. Everyone inherently, essentially, we want things to be fair. Exactly what you did. It's so beautiful, justice. But it's so safe to have chesed. Right? Which one's holier? So this is the underlying political argument. The secular world's busy with right or left, like chickens without heads. They're not even, where they start, we have levels. I'm not even halfway done. There are 8, 9 levels. We're going to do 6 levels now. But level number 1 is left-right. That's what most people think. Deeper is to know self-others. Deeper is, they don't talk about it, unity or individuality. You'll never hear that talked about. Deeper than that is chesed or din. Now that's a real argument. Now, more people will say chesed. Chesed's holiest. Shem, but maybe it's din. Just Avraham or Yitzchak. Justice or kindness. So it's very hard to choose, but let's go. But that's not the source, because I would ask you the same question. What's the next level of depth? Why would one person be drawn to chesed and one person be drawn to justice? If you want to resolve the political argument, you have to resolve that. Why do some people think chesed is the greatest thing in the world and some people think din is? When they're both appealing. So what's the answer? What's the root? Now you know already what I'm doing, so see if you can project the next step. What's the root of that argument? We had right, left, self, others. Unity, individuality. Chesed versus din. If you believe in chesed, you're going to believe in unity. If you believe in unity, you're going to focus on others. If you focus on others, you're going to be the left. If you believe in din, you're going to say you have to earn it yourself. If you have to earn it yourself, then you have to be an individual. You have to be all that you are. If you're going to be an individual, then you're going to focus on self. You're going to focus on self. You're going to be a right winger. What's one level deeper? We have a few levels to go. What's one level deeper? What? No, I'm saying, what's the argument? I wonder what the argument is. What is the belief? The belief, the machlokas that underlies chesed and din is a deeper argument, which is getting closer to the center of the world. It's an argument of what is holier, emes or shalom. Emes and shalom are also opposites. If I say what's your name? Who? Oh, I'm doing him. I'll do you next. What's your name? Elazar. We're old friends. I tell Elazar he owes me $100. Elazar says lahadam. It's not, it's not true. So now you want to make shalom. You say, come on, we're Jews. It's a nice weekend. What are you screaming at each other? What are you going to propose? What should we do? I say 100. He says 0. What's your idea? You have an idea? You split it. Give him $50. Okay? So now, that might work. We call that shalom. It's peace. The problem is that shalom is not emes. He either owes me 100 or he owes me 0. There is no option of 50. Emes says it's 100 or 0. Shalom says, what's the right way to go? What's holier, shalom or emes? You see, if you believe that shalom is higher, then what are you going to do? If you believe that shalom is higher, then you're going to advocate for chesed. If you're going to advocate for chesed, you're going to focus on unity. Focus on unity, right? This is the whole. If you believe that emes is the holiest thing, then emes says it has to be mishpat. If you don't earn it, it's not emes. Emes, the emes guy will automatically believe in mishpat. Mishpat will lead you to unity, to individuality. Individuality will bring you to self, and self will bring it to. Okay. So where does the machlokes of emes and shalom come from? See, when you do this to secular people, to college students, they think they're so smart, and then you talk about Yiddishkeit, you show them, well, this is Avraham and Yitzchak, and then that's Moshe and Aaron. Chesed and din is Yitzchak and Moshe, and then the next step, Moshe and Aaron come, they do it over again, and we didn't get to Hillel and Shammai and to whatever.
The universe was created with emes, and it was only later that.
Well, I'll tell you, the machlokes really comes, Hillel and Shammai are, you know what the first machlokes Hillel and Shammai is? The root of, this is the machlokes, emes or shalom, chesed and din, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. It's just a continuation of the oldest machlokes in history. But it comes from, the Torah lends itself to both positions. The first machlokes is, did Hashem create Shamayim first or Oretz first? The first it says, Bereishis bara Elokim es ha-shamayim ve'es ha-oretz. And then it says, B'yoyim bara Hashem Elokim eretz v'shamayim. So Shammai says, Shamayim comes before Eretz. And Hillel says, Eretz. No, Eretz comes before Shamayim. And this is going to affect the entire machlokes. But let's go in order. Let me go. I just want to show you, I just like to show the students, make them feel humbled in the face of the Torah's, like, they spend their whole lives talking about politics, they've never scratched the surface of what lies the roots of these positions. Underlying chesed and din brings us to things like Hashem created the world with a duality of thought and emotion. And that's what it comes down to. Thought exists and emotion exists. The thought, shleimus of thought is emes, shleimus of emotion is shalom. So now thought and emotion come from the heart and the brain. So the heart, so now we get into, okay, so what's more important, heart or brain? The machlokes is endless, and ultimately it'll come down to the Sefer Yetzirah breaks the entire world up as follows. We like to throw out numbers. Is everything in Yiddishkeit tens, or is everything in Yiddishkeit sevens? Or maybe it's all 12s. Or maybe it's all 3s. Right? So the Sefer Yetzirah solves it all for you. He says the world was created with 32 things. There are 22 letters and 10 numbers. The 22 letters all break down into 3 groups. There's 10 numbers. So all 10s in the world, anything you know of 10, it has its shoyrish and the 10 numbers. The Aseret Mamoros, the Aseret Adibros, the Aseret Makos, they're all the same. You can line them up the same way, right? Whatever. The mitzvahs, you can line, it's cool to line them up to figure out how they all parallel each other. But you have, but then you have, that's a tens. The numbers break into 3 sets. There are 7 letters in Hebrew. The 22 break into 7, 12, and 3. There are 7, what we call in Hebrew, kefulos, 7 double letters that have dageshes. Beged kefres, Beis Gimel, Dalad Kaf, Pei Reish Taf. Ashkenazim, we don't pronounce all the differences, but there are 7 letters in Hebrew that are makabel dagesh. Beis Veis, Gimel Jimel, Dalad Dalith, Beged kefres, Kaf Chaf, Reish whatever, Pei Fei Taf Saf. Those are called the 7 kefulos, Beged Kefres. There are 12 pshutos, there are 12 letters that only have one use. And so all 12s in the world are built on those 12 letters. The 12 months, the 12 shvatim, each one has its root in one of the letters. And the 7 days of the week, and all the 7s have their roots in one of the doubles, and then the 3s. Everything has its root in the 3s. The 3 letters are Aleph, Mem, and Shin. Aleph, Mem, and Shin are called the imahos, the mother letters. And they are the roots of all thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. What the Sefer Yetzirah says is that Mem and Shin are the opposites. Mem hums and Shin hisses. And the synthesis of the humming and the hissing is the silence of the Aleph. The opposites of the world are humming and hissing. And Mem and Shin create 2 different names of Hashem. Hashem and Elohim. We call them unity and harmony. There are 2 versions, I do a whole share on this, I'm just going to say it now in short. There are 2 versions of the Echad. You can picture white is Echad. Everything is one, it's all white. And then I can look at a painting of all the colors combined beautifully and I say that's Echad. Which one's Echad? Right? They're both Echad because there are 2 versions of Echad. There's white Echad, which is white before you divide the light. Before you put light through a prism, it's white. Then you divide it up into all the colors and you have separation. But then I can take all the colors and make a unified painting. That's called a symphony. A symphony is not white. Silence is white. White is white. Colors combined are harmony. There's harmony and unity. Mem and Shin. Mem is unity. Shin is harmony. And harmony and unity create Hashem and Elohim, and that creates intellect and emotion. It's just, I'm just opening a can of worms, something for you to play with on your own time. But the roots of all political discussion comes down to the roots of the universe. The world is built on polar opposites, intellect and emotion. All these positions are legitimate. You can talk to someone in politics and you can shake your head at everything they say because it's all beautiful. Their only problem is they don't realize they're perfectly articulating half of reality. The other half is just as beautiful, and Torah is Yaakov, the synthesis, the Aleph, the Aleph Mem and Shin. Okay, let me go to the last part of the talk. This is the most practical. Do I have time? How much time do I have? Beautiful. Everything I said is a nice theoretical talk, and it has no relevance whatsoever to any practical political discussion. You should basically erase everything I said if you want to know anything real. Because nothing that goes on in politics today has any... This is the theoretical model of how politics should be in a perfectly pristine, holy world. I want to deal with what the Torah really deals with politics. The first political discussion in Torah is a story of Korach. Let's analyze the story of Korach. Everyone knows the story of Korach in short? Okay, let me just sum up what we said, because I want to feel like I put it away. Okay? We said 2 things. We said We did it backwards. First, we showed that the positions of left and right have many, many levels of depth. It's not just right or left, it's self versus others, which comes from union versus individuality, which comes from chesed versus din, which comes from truth versus peace, which comes from motion versus intellect, which comes from mind versus heart, which comes from unity versus harmony, which comes from Hashem Elokim, which comes from mem and shin, and that's how it lines up. And then the root of it all is to put it all together. Avraham, Yitzchak, and then Yaakov is the Tiferes. Christianity is the right, and they've gone through the world butchering people, and Islam is the left. They've gone through the world and whatever, and being naïves and all these things, and now they're all unified. This great big United Nations. They both do both, but we're the Tiferes. We're the balance, and Yaakov is the attempt, again, we're not always perfect, but this is our goal, is to synthesize the two. And we said there are three biases. Chesed comes before din. You make a mistake, always make it to the chesed side, and the face of us always has to be the friendly chesed side, not the kanoi is not the spokesman. The spokesman is the peaceful gadol. There's always a Moshe and Aaron, right? In my generation growing up, it was reversed. There was Rabbi Aaron and Rav Moshe. Rav Moshe and Rav Aaron had the opposite roles of the Moshe and Aaron of the Torah. Maybe we think of it like that. Aaron was the Moshe, was the fiery Ish Emes, and Rav Moshe made Shalom, and we've had throughout the Torah always this duality of leadership, and it's a healthy thing for Klal Yisrael. Moshe speaks and Aaron speaks, and Moshe carries the stick. Okay. And we're only punished when they don't work together. When Moshe overwhelms Aaron, they both get punished. Moshe and Aaron have to work together, and we have to have a unified voice. Kairach. This is the problem with politics is people get stuck in theory, and that's where we get eaten alive. When we talk about what's really going on, you'll see it's not so beautiful. Kairach comes to Moshe Rabbeinu, and he says the following: Kol ha'eda kulam kedoshim. Moshe Rabbeinu is in the process, they're in the midbar, they just finished Har Sinai, they build the Mishkan, everything's ready. He's appointing Kohanim and Leviim. He's saying we need Leviim, Kohanim, and Yisraelim. And Kairach comes, what are you doing this for? Why are you making a caste system? Isn't this everything we're trying to overcome? Higher people, lower people, elitists, 1%ers, right? Kol ha'eda kulam kedoshim. Everyone's holy. Lama tisnasu, what are you doing over here? And he's very smart. He comes with two halacha questions that illustrate his point perfectly. He says, if you have a bayis kulei svarim, if you have a house, it's all svarim, do you need a mezuzah on the door? What's he saying? He's saying if everyone's holy, why don't you Kohanim and Leviim? The Jews are a house full of svarim. He also says if you have a beged that's all techeles, do you need a string of techeles on it? They're both metaphors for the same point. He's saying we're all holy. Now Moshe Rabbeinu reacts in a fascinating way. Moshe Rabbeinu, who till now, this isn't the first complaint he had. This isn't the first kvetch. This is not the first rebellion. They've been complaining since they left Mitzrayim. And Moshe Rabbeinu, every time Hashem gets angry, he says, no, Hashem, erase me, don't do this, let him go. Moshe, throughout the Torah, is begging Hashem to forgive the Jews. Until this time, Kairach comes and he says, Kol ha'eda kulam kedoshim, and Moshe Rabbeinu says, okay, we're going to have a showdown, and you're going to come, and one of us is going to die. And Hashem, don't let them die a regular death. The ground has to open up, swallow them whole, there's nothing left. This is the same Moshe who's defending Klal Yisrael down to the last strength of his body. What happened? What is going on over here? Not only is that strange and out of character for everything we've seen till now, but what's more strange is what's Klal Yisrael's reaction? That's what happens. The first time Moshe Rabbeinu asked for a reaction, it happens exactly like he says. The ground opens up, everyone gets swallowed up, and Klal Yisrael is not satisfied. Like nothing. Klal Yisrael is complaining. What do you do to them? What are you doing? It's crazy though. There's no greater sign till now of anything that Moshe was right, and this is when they get upset. It's only a few steps later that Moshe says the following. Okay, all the leaders get your staffs. All the leaders of each tribe puts their mateh down, and Aaron's staff sprouts almonds. And then everyone goes, oh, now we get it. I'm sorry, you're right. We're sorry. Our bad. You got it. What's the story? So many questions. What was Korach tithing? Why did Moshe go to war against him like he never did before? Why did the people didn't accept it? So the normal way that people think of the Moshe Rabbeinu story, answers, of the Korach story, answers, again, most people don't think about it at all, but the people who think about it, I've heard many people talk about it in this way, it answers half of the questions. What people say is that Korach, you know what Korach was? Korach was the first communist. Have you heard that? A lot of thinkers come up with that. Korach's the first communist. He's saying, Kol ha'edu kulam kedoshim, everyone's holy, why do we need leaders? Let's overthrow the elite, we'll take the people, we'll take all the power. He sounds like the first communist. And I think that would explain a few of the kashas. Because then we understand why the people are so open to Korach. Because the truth is, it's very rare to find a person in the world who didn't go through a communistic stage. Every single person has this thought at one point in their life about how this utopian world, imagine a world with no competition, no kinna, no stealing, everyone gets the same stuff. We all in our youth, hopefully, if you're a healthy, loving person, if you never had this thought, you might have to worry. But most people have thought how beautiful the world would be if everybody was equal. And if that's what Korach is saying, which is what it sounds like he's saying, Kol ha'edu kulam kedoshim, everyone's holy, why do you need leaders for? It sounds wonderful. And that would explain why everyone backs him up. That would also explain why when Moshe says Hashem wipe him out, and Hashem does exactly like he says, they're still upset. Because what do we say even today? Even today when we talk about communism. Communism fell, we're in charge, what do we say? We say it was evil? No, the words we use for communism is, it's naive. It doesn't work. Everyone talks of this romantic, sense, like this, it's sad. It just doesn't work. It's not practical. It's a theory. Everyone has this compassionate, nostalgic sort of feeling about, because everyone feels that it would be beautiful. It's just not practical. It's naive. That's the worst thing we say about communism. It's naive. So it makes sense why the people get all frustrated that Moshe Rabbeinu's going to war. The only question that remains is the most important question. So why did Moshe get so upset? If they're just naive dreamers, not practical, so, bring Shlomo Carlebach, have a kumsitz. Like, why are you going to war? Send them to Uman. This is the problem? That's the answer, is to swallow the ground, bunch of dreamers with all their feet on the ground? You start a career training thing, you get them jobs, they'll learn, they'll raise families, they'll make a little parnasa, they'll feel different, they'll wake up earlier, they'll stop smoking. Whatever it is, we know the answer. I'm almost by the punchline. This might be a couple extra minutes. Okay. So here's the home stretch. You mask him to what the story is about. We're saying that Korach is the first communist. That makes sense. The question is why Moshe doesn't seem on the right page. Moshe is not seeing it like that. And this is what we have to learn today. My entire speech was validating both political positions. I described to this point that Klal Yisrael is Moshe and Aaron. I made liberals sound like Moshe and conservatives sound like Yitzchak. And they're both true, they're just both limited that they're only 50%, and the goal is to balance them. There's a lot more to the story. Not everybody who claims to be a liberal is really a liberal. A true liberal, a person who's concerned that people are suffering and in pain, is truly like Avraham Avinu. And one of the holiest people in the world, he is 50% of Yiddishkeit. He's not 100%, but he's 50, pretty good to be 50% of Yiddishkeit. And that's Avraham. But not everybody who talks like that is the same. The line that liberalism uses, the mantra is equality. But equality is far from being a safely holy word. It sounds very controversial to say that, but let me tell you what equality means. And this is where people make a mistake, and this is why academia it's so dangerous. The word equality means that everyone should be at the same place. We should all be the same. And that's true. That's a nice thing to think. That's what Korach said. But the problem is there are two distinct ways to create equality. If people are here and people are here, there are two ways to do that. One way to create equality is to take all the depressed people, everyone else and raise them up. And that's Avraham Avinu. Could I give you a boost? Could I give you a hand? Could I feed you? Could I clothe you? Could I encourage you? But there's a whole other way to create equality. And that is to knock the person who's here down, that he should have nothing also. We should all wallow in the mud together and no one should walk around with a smile on their face. And then we're all equal too. When someone uses the word equality, there's no way to tell which one he's saying. Equality is not a holy word. Equality is literally the most important word to define where you're coming from, because there's no word that the expressions of it can be more polar ranges of the range of holiness. There's nothing holier than the person who raises the person from here up there, and there's nothing worse than the person who just wants to degrade everything and break everything. There should be nothing beautiful. And they both use the same word, holy. Kairach comes, Kol Eida Kulam Kedoshim. And everyone goes, wow, it sounds so good, isn't that beautiful? Everyone should be equal. Equality, equality. Every student on every campus, equality, equality. But Moshe Rabbeinu sees something that till today most people have never seen. There's two ways to create equality. You can raise everybody up, you can knock everybody else down. One guy is driven by love. What's the other guy driven by? What do you accomplish by knocking people down? What's the accomplishment?
Become the most powerful person.
You just silence Here's simple. There's two traits in the world that combine in different ways. It could be beautiful, ugly, or something in the middle. A work ethic and an ego. You see, if you have a work ethic and an ego, it's really good. Why? Because you got to be the man, and you go out, you work hard, you become the man. If you have no ego and no work ethic, that works pretty good too. You work in Walmart, you do some bagging, and you're happy. The problem is where you have the ego and you have no work ethic. Now what do you got to do? I got to be the man. I can't be number two, but I don't want to work, or I'm a coward. I don't want to compete. So I just have to make sure that nobody has anything. And if nobody has everything, then I don't feel bad. And my mission becomes destroy everything beautiful. And I use the exact same words as the other people do. Moshe Rabbeinu is seeing there, and Klal Yisrael hears this hero walk onto the scene. Equality! Kol ha'ezo kulam kedoshim! And Moshe Rabbeinu listens carefully. And Moshe Rabbeinu hears something that nobody else heard. If Kairach was a tzaddik, if Kairach was Moshe Rabbeinu, how would he have finished off his sentence? Finish the sentence. Moshe is saying, we need some Kohanim and Leviim. You're going to be Kohanim, you're going to be Leviim. Here's your stellar, here's your stellar. Kairach goes, whoa, Kol Eida Kulam Kedoshim. Finish the sentence. What should we do? Give everybody a stellar. What does Kairach say? Kol Eida Kulam Kedoshim. Lama tisnasu al kahal Hashem. Why have you raised yourself over the assembly of Hashem? What is bothering Kairach? That you're higher. Kairach feels nothing for the people who are low. Kairach's cure is you come back down, no one should have anything. It's the same word, equality. It could be the holiest people in the world or the most evil. I call it liberalism and counterfeit liberalism. And you have to be able to expose it. I go to colleges and I tell the students, you're surrounded by this mass. You live with Kairach. They talk all day long about equality, but all they want to do is to silence beauty. And I'll prove it to you. See, if your professor talks about the starving people in Darfur, then maybe they're liberals. Avram Avinu. But if they're talking about the corporations and how evil they're, then what bothers them? Let me show it to you clearly. If you're a loving person, so you have, college professors are very educated, they're very unique people. So they should have unique ideas. Isn't it fascinating that I'll give you a slew of 15 different agendas, totally unrelated, and every single professor, versus virtually every single professor has the exact same position as the other one on all 15. If you have one, I can pick the other 14. Not related issues. They hate corporations. They don't like fur coats. They don't like people who drive SUVs. They don't like nuclear families. They don't like marriage. They don't like Judaism, Christianity. They don't like Israel. They don't like truth. There's no truth. There's no morality. Is there anything that truth, morality, families, marriage, Jews, coats, fur coats, environment, ozone layers, corporations, is there anything in common of all those things? What is truth, wealth, SUVs, fur coats, families, marriage, children, Boy Scouts, What do they have in common? What is a gun? Having the right to have a gun? What is the right to having religion? What's the right to having a statue? Is there any we all know that if you have one, we can predict all your positions. What is it? It's the need to silence anybody who walks around with a content, satisfied, proud smile on his face. It's a war against pride. If there's no truth, I can't be wrong. If there's no morality, I can't be bad. If there's no marriage, I'm not single. If there's no money, money is evil, I'm not poor. They don't like animals. They don't want you wearing a fur coat. They don't care about the environment. They don't want you driving that fancy SUV. They don't care about Palestinians. Even the Palestinians know they're wrong. They just don't like Jews. They don't like religion. They don't want anyone, they're kairach. Lama tisnasu al kal Hashem. There's a war in the world against truth. There's a war in the world against morality, families, marriage, wealth, creativity, power, beliefs, confidence. Don't walk around like you think you know something. We don't know anything. It's all relative. Why do they want it to be relative? Because they don't want anyone to be happier than they are. This is the story of Kairach. You have to be able to, and this is not everybody. I've met college professors on every college who are there because they love knowledge and they love the students and they want to share their knowledge. But they're the vast minority. You can't use a blanket statement on all of them. I tell the students, you have to be really careful. Because in the competitive world, you can make tons of money. Someone who becomes a college professor to teach students is the holiest person in the world. He's foregoing his personal career and wealth to share with you. That's Avraham Avinu. If you can find Avram, you better not make a mistake. But don't mistake the Avrams through all the other ones. It's a very important thing to be able to resolve. Which brings it to the last part. I'm really done, but I can go to the last step. So what's with the staff sprouting almonds? When do the people finally get this? What wakes them up in the end? Moshe saw it, they didn't see it. They still hear equality, equality. They fell into that lullaby effect of equality, equality, so holy, equality. They don't realize the vicious need to silence beauty. The opposite of Yiddishkeit. It's Amalek. Amalek is suffix. The need not to create a doubt in God, to create doubt, period. They're just suffix. Don't ever have clarity, because clarity feels good. You just need everything to be wishy-washy. That's the war of Amalek. Nothingness. Nothingness that I can never fail. Because there's no success. It's such a safe way to live. I can just chill and feel no guilt, because there is nothing. That's Amalek. We live in the world of Amalek. It's like never before. Amalek owns the world. We're looking for some Mordechai's and Esther's. But what does Moshe Rabbeinu say? They put the staff in, and Aaron's staff sprouts almonds. And then the people get it. V'yotzet tzitz v'yigmol shkedim. What is the message of that? What's the metaphor? So Rashi says, what are shkedim? Almonds. But the Torah word is better. What does shkedim mean? What's the meaning of the word shaked? Shkedim? In learning, it's called, right? What's shaked mean? Diligent, alacrity, zeal. That's what shkedim are. Rashi says, because they're the fastest growing fruit. And that's what everybody understood. The thing that this is the question. Why would someone choose to raise people up and some people choose to knock people down? That's the biggest question in the world. If unity is the word, and there's Avram unity and Kairach unity, why are there some Avram, some Kairach? What separates Avram from Kairach? And what separates Avram and Kairach is Shkedim. If you're willing to work, then you climb. If you're not willing to work, and you're not passionate, and you're not fired up, then your need is to knock everybody else down. When Aaron's staff sprouts Shkedim, then everybody understands what the difference is. One person's a cop-out and lazy and cowardly, and one person's fiery. And I'll end with this image, because this is even from people, Kairach 1, until we change it back. The image of peace in the world is we all have this picture, even the frumest people, maybe not literally this, but we all picture to some degree Buddha sitting there with his legs crossed. Like even progressive Haredim, we take a little kind of kosherized yogas, and because shleimus is to be that serenity. Cross your legs if you can, almost if you can't, but you sit there, and now you're in shalom. And then Judaism comes in. We mess with everything in Yiddishkeit. Nothing can be the way it is. And we have Aaron's Mr. Shalom. And what's the adjective associated with Aaron's name? Roidev Shalom. What do you mean Roidev Shalom? Pursue, that's the opposite of Shalom. It's so counterintuitive. Isn't Shalom sitting still, serene, sedate? Roidev Shalom. You meet a person and he's on ADD and he goes, I'm not an ADD. You go, oh, you must be a Kayan then. Right, a Levi. Ka'adim Levim, they're all fired up. Roidev. But how do you have those words, Roidev Shalom? And that is the biggest paradigm shift in the world. To understand that Shalom is dynamic. The secular image of Shalom, of sitting still, is called Yush. I gave up. What they call Shalom is the magic word whatever. Whatever is peaceful. If I stop caring about anything, then there's no fights. I can solve all the fights in the world if I say whatever. Let's all say whatever. And that's called Shalom. That's called brokenness. That's the saddest place in the world. Our Shalom is Roidev Shalom. It's Goimel Shkedim. It's vibrant. Everyone can have a stellar. Let you find your stellar. And that is the synthesis of Avraham and Yitzchak. A world where everyone becomes who they are. And that who they are is a symphony of true Shalom, an expansive, vibrant, musical, loud, glowing completion of millions of unique people creating a symphony that has never been heard. And that's the picture. That's what we say when we daven. Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. The sounds of all the parts of the Bria, all the Misharos of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, each one proclaiming the beauty of the Borei Olam in his unique avodah. Not alone, not a solo of Yitzchak, but not the faceless hug of Chesed, but millions of unique voices. And that's a symphony, and that's the model of Klal Yisrael. And that's Roidev Shalom, and that's our model of Shleimus, the opposite of Lama Tisnasu Akasha. We should look to raise everybody up, to be Noisei Yisroish, Yisa Yisroish, and Klal Yisrael. Everybody should feel fully expanded, fully alive, and we should share in each other's simcha.